Item H1 is a safe haven. This is the first item brought forward independently by our student board member, Ms. Smith, so I'll turn it over to you.
I just wanted to have a discussion with the board this evening about something that a lot of districts across the state have been introducing, and they're called safe haven resolutions. So the state superintendent of public instruction, Tom Torlakson, released a letter in late December, and he encouraged all schools to be declared safe havens. Most of these resolutions are very symbolic. They will affirm that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE agents, cannot enter schools or district property without prior written approval from the superintendent. And something that really stood out to me, why this caught my attention in the first place, is because I think it was the San Diego Union Tribune wrote about San Diego Unified approving this resolution, and what they proclaimed is that when students are worried whether they themselves, their loved ones, their family are at risk of being deported, then it poses significant barriers to their education.
I very much support Ella's idea that we should consider this in terms of, I don't know how you want it brought forward, if you want to have us take a crack at drafting one and then bring that forward for discussion, but I do think it should be put on a future agenda for action one way or the other, because I do think it's relevant, certainly, to our educational mission.
My personal opinion on this, and I agree with President O'Connor-Ratcliffe, that I think that there are ways to get out the information, the laws that are already in place to protect students that may be experiencing some form of anxiety, and the district website may be one form of medium for doing that. But I personally am not in favor of going down the road of passing a resolution to this effect.
These resolutions are also being passed in school districts throughout San Diego County, and it's not simply just to enunciate existing laws, but to let our students know the steps our district and our parents, the steps that our district will take to ensure that they feel that they have a safe space here. And I think that's very important. We talk a lot about putting our students first. This is an opportunity to tell them that we will go to great lengths to keep them safe. And as our student board member said, that's pretty much a precursor to student learning, is that they feel safe.
It does send a very powerful message to our community that we care about the minority voices, and voices that sometimes, I don't even want to say are too quiet, but sometimes those voices that are just blatantly too scared to speak up. And I think those voices are so important, and I can even say that they're overlooked because oftentimes they're too scared to speak up, and I just think that's not a really great place to be. And I'm ultimately, my goal is not to get this resolution passed. My goal is to serve those people in the best way we possibly can, and I hope we can come to a consensus what the best way is to serve them. Thank you.
I am absolutely in support of this concept, and I think getting the information out to our families and our students is the most important part of this by far. I have to agree with Mr. Zane in bringing up the dyslexia resolution that we decided was not appropriate for this board.
Why is it necessarily a bad thing if we are passing resolutions that kind of look at specific groups? Because something I'm really conscious about is the difference between equality and equity. Equality is giving everyone the same, but whereas equity is kind of giving specific groups almost what they need to be more successful. I believe that's a great way to kind of go about solving opportunity gaps. So, I mean, say we do take on this resolution, and we do take on a dyslexia resolution. If that's what our community needs, and those are the specific ways we can solve those opportunity gaps among these groups, why is it such a bad thing? Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, and no one's ever going to shut you down. We may not always agree, but we won't shut you down. and I don't agree at this time. But
I'm inclined to simply say, look, let's just docket this as an action item. I'm happy to write the resolution in concert with Ms. Smith or not, or anyone else who wants to participate. But I think that we should bring it forward as an action item. If we choose not to adopt it, I think that's, certainly our prerogative, but I do think that we should at least debate it, and we have to have something to debate before we can do that.
So I guess I'd like to note again that, Ms. Smith, you make a good point that there are some important issues out there and groups who we're looking for equity, not equality. But I would argue that it's the louder voices that are going to get our attention, and that's not always equity. And I still prefer not to accomplish this via a resolution. For me, I prefer that we never get into weighing, who deserves equality versus equity and which groups we should address, and I would rather never get into that. That's my personal preference. And if this were to come before us as a resolution, I can't see myself ever voting against this. I think it's important, but I just don't want a resolution. I think it sets a bad precedent for our district and for this board and the things that we may consider going forward and the things that we may accidentally neglect to consider. I don't want to do that. I don't want to put any group and make them think that they're less because we didn't consider a resolution on them or we didn't independently come up with it, and we should have. I just don't want us to get into that. That's my preference. So I do think that we probably have two for and 2 against moving forward with a resolution versus just, boy, I hate to do this to our brand new board member like this.
If this is going out to our community, they're going to see something from Tom Tollerson that says urging school districts to become safe havens. It could come back at us and say, well, why aren't we a safe haven? And then it just kind of repeats itself. This isn't something we might want to resolve. Does that make sense?
Again, a clarifying point. I suppose the agreement was we're not sharing the news release. We're sharing the official letter. So absent the news release portion.
And I think in the letter, though, he does urge school districts to become these safe haven to adopt these safe haven resolutions.
Yeah. Point well taken. Maybe it's then if we're not ready to go that far. I still feel like I would like his letter posted, but if we don't want to go there, he does list out the existing laws that protect student records. And I think those are the really critical part of his letter anyway. Are we rethinking posting the whole letter?
It's a great point. One of the underlying reasons, and Dr. Patel and I think share this, as you articulated it, is this is a very politically charged item, and clearly the first 2 paragraphs of the State Superintendent's letter are politically tinged, if you will. Starting with the 3rd paragraph, as to Superintendent of Public Education, safety is my top priority, and from that point on, that's the information we really want to get out there, and that is the extent of the information I think we ought to endeavor to put out there on the website and see where we go with it.